The last area I said we looked at in phase one was this idea of what it looked like. And we spoke to, I think, about 7 companies who are all seen by their senior management team as doing this well. And in talking to those companies, we were across the span. I mean, we were talking to call centers, we were talking to software development firms, and as you can see here, a multinational pharmaceutical and a DIY chain. So we see that at least it's something that doesn't seem to be stopped from happening due to industry type. But in particular, I just want to draw attention to these 2 guys, Tom and David, who spoke to us. Because in interviewing them, I just sort of started to see strong similarities between these 2 individuals. And the first was that they were both Lean Six Sigma green belts. Now, in terms of being Lean Six Sigma green belts, what's that tell us? It just means that they kind of think this way. They think, how can I show business value? Because it's in their DNA nearly through their training. So it's a mindset, shall we say. The second is they were both recent departments. Now, if you're listening to this today and saying, well, I've been in this company for 10 years, obviously you can't just make it a recent department. But maybe you can draw a line in the sand and say, set out a program and say, well, from here, let's change how we do this. At least experiment and see if we can move forward and find if it works for us or not. They both plan for business. Now, I go back to that bit at the beginning about treating it again as separate activities. So before they start any intervention, they're thinking, what's the business angle and how might it manifest and how might it show it? They're both willing to experiment and live or die by that data. So they set out their stall in terms of saying, what can I measure and what can I measure again? And how can I bring those together to see if the intervention has had an effect? They seek advocates, certainly in the early stages. If you're starting from a position where maybe L&D isn't seen as a strategic partner, if you can find an advocate to work with you and move towards that, it can really be a great way to get moving. They never rocked up to the senior management team and said, hey, look what we did. They actually always involved other departments such as finance, commercial or sales or HR to get further data that solidified the story that they were telling. And they broadcast the business outcomes. And that was a really strong one, from the point of view of moving from sort of say, for want of a better, maybe from smiley sheets results to actually broadcasting what effect it had had on the business. And that actually, they believe, really changed how they were perceived. So as I say, there were just similarities across these 2 guys that I thought was interesting because they're both definitely seen as strategic partners in their firm.